In the co-main event, UFC Fight Night Gone versus Tuivasa. In the middleweight division, Robert the Reaper Whittaker defeated Marvin Vettori by unanimous decision. The scorecards read 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. What was your impression of Bobby Knuckles looking good against the Italian Dream?
How good is Robert Whittaker? I mean, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Robert Whittaker is just so goddamn good. And we may have talked about this last week when we were previewing the fights, but his ability to close distance and to explode in close distance is absolutely phenomenal. And for him to have the gas tank to do that consistently and with power for 3 rounds is phenomenal. I understand why one judge gave the 29-28. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. I did have it 30-27 for Robert Whittaker across the board. It just got worse as the rounds went on, to be honest. It became more and more of a clinic. But we should also give credit to Vettori because just like Ty, Vettori is a goddamn dog. Most people would have fallen to half of the strikes that he got hit cleanly with by Robert Whittaker. Whittaker hits hard. Looks like he hit hard. He wasn't even putting, his game plan for that fight was not stringing combinations together. It was not to throw a ton of strikes or volume. His approach to that fight seemed to be snipe him. Anytime you see an opening, hit him as hard as you can with one shot. And the one shots kept accumulating. He kept finding areas, whether it was his right hand, whether it was his kicks. I mean, he was getting like boom, throw here, boom, throw here, boom, throw here, and he was getting them. And it just got worse. And you would think that the longer that went on, Vettori would be able to adjust to it, to be able to read it, to pick up the pattern, from Robert Whittaker. But it did not happen. And again, it got worse. So got to give credit to Robert Whittaker, man. He put on an absolute performance in that fight. It really gets down to the point in that division that it's Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker by a mile in that division. And I don't really know what else makes logical sense but to give Robert Whittaker a title shot sooner rather than later. I understand the arguments against it. I understand how many fights they've had already. But there is a reality that Robert Whittaker is the goddamn best, if not second best in that division. And Israel Adesanya is, they're right there, dude. They're right there. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that the only guy Robert Whittaker is going to lose to at this point is Izzy. Because I don't see him losing to anybody else. He's so good.
Yeah, man. All right, Mark, let's bring you in here. What was your impression of Whittaker's big win against Vettori?
Yeah, so I said last week I did not believe Marvin Vettori was on the same level as Robert Whittaker, especially technically. And that is exactly what we saw. I said Whittaker was going to make him find him in there. He couldn't find him. I said Whittaker was going to land too often, and it's exactly how this thing played out. Robert Whittaker is so damn good, and he legitimately makes guys look bad. Like, they can't believe how much they're being hit. They can't believe how clean they're being hit. They can't believe how little they're hitting Whittaker. Like, he frustrates the hell out of guys. And he said it himself. He said after the fight that he makes people hate fighting, that he takes the love out of it for them. And that's what it looks like. That's what it looked like when he fought Gastelum. It's even what it looked like when he fought Cannonier a bit. And it's crazy because think about those 3 guys. He is beating these guys, Gastelum, Cannonier, Vettori. He is beating all of them worse and with more ease than Izzy is.
Than Izzy,
but he can't 100%. It's crazy. But the guy is unbelievable. You got to give him his credit. Omar said this, but he has such a mastery of range. He is so quick at crashing in and closing that distance, and then he is immediately back out. And he changes the rhythm so well, so you can't get used to that timing. Like Omar was saying, Vettori, he would have figured it out, but he couldn't figure it out because it's different rhythms, it's different timings. He keeps you guessing the whole damn fight. There are so many punches that Vettori was throwing that were coming up 1 inch short and 2 inches short. Like, he's a master of that range. And you even see it when you think back on the Izzy fight. Like, who is that close with Izzy, where like no one's really hitting each other that clean and whatever. And it's because Whittaker is just as damn good at handling range as Izzy is. And he doesn't get the same credit, but he deserves it. And yes, Omar said this as well. Vettori's tough as hell. We knew this. A lot of men would have been stopped by a good handful of those shots. And he was not. He never quit. He kept trying to bring the fight. He's just not as good as Robert Whittaker.
Amen. Let's stick with Whittaker right now. He's had his title run. He's had his shots at Adesanya. Where does he go from here, Mark? Let's stick with you right here.
I said it last week, and I'm sticking with it. I want to see Whittaker versus Costa. I think that it's the only thing that makes sense right now. There's nowhere else to go with Whittaker. If Izzy wins, he's not going to already fight Izzy again right away. And if Pereira wins, I'm sure, even though you'd love to say, we could do Whittaker-Pereira, I'm sure he's going to get a rematch. So, yeah, Whittaker needs a fight in the meantime. He's whipped everyone else. There's one guy sitting there that he has not whipped. It's Paulo Costa. Let's book it.
Let me ask you a question. Do you run back, and this is purely hypothetical, I don't actually even think this is going to happen. People are writing Alex Pereira like, I've never seen so many people get on a train so quickly and so blindly. It's crazy to me personally. But anyway,
really?
My point is, if Alex Pereira completely dominates for 5 rounds, Israel Adesanya, not a flash knockout, not Izzy got caught, purely styles on him for 5 rounds, makes him look like he shouldn't be champion. If that happens, do you give him the immediate rematch?
No. I would not.
All right. Okay.
Really? After this long
in
of a
any
title run?
scenario.
I agree.
One, I would.
Yeah.
Say it again.
I agree with that.
In any scenario other than that one, I would.
Yeah. Flash
So like a
knockout.
flash knockout.
Right.
Yeah. Like
Close
the only way I
fight.
wouldn't is if he just totally outclasses him and you're like, wow, Alex Pereira is much better than Izzy.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, I guess.
I will say Alex Pereira brings an interesting little wrinkle into this division because it does beg the question, can Alex Pereira hang with the top of this division? Because if he does, fights with Robert Whittaker become super interesting. Fights with Paulo Costa become super interesting, right? So it'll be nice to see if Alex Pereira can really hang with the top of this division. He's done work. I don't rate Sean Strickland that high as far as that's concerned. Sean Strickland had his run. That can't take away that from him. But as far as technique and talent and stuff like that, I think there are guys that just stand above him. And if Pereira can really hang with them, style on them, whatever the case is, it'll make things super interesting in that division that haven't really been that questionable in quite some time.
Yeah, the top of the division is wild because you have these two guys, and it's like, if anyone gets there, like a Pereira, say he beats Izzy, the first thing you're going to say is, well, he hasn't fought Whittaker yet. And if anyone beats Whittaker, the first thing you're going to say is, well, he hasn't beat Izzy. It's like there's almost two kings in this division.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, for those of you who may have played Mortal Kombat back in the day, like Robert Whittaker is Goro, and then Izzy is like Shao Kahn. He's like the last guy that you beat at this point. Wow. But Izzy's the guy with the 4 arms that's just trying
Izzy
to rip
would love
him
that
apart.
comparison.
That's why I said it. Izzy, this what's up.
Let's throw out a name real quick for the loser in this contest, Marvin Vettori. Omar, take a look at the middleweight rankings and give us your matchup for the Italian Dream, where he goes off this loss.
Yeah, it's a rough one for Vettori, man, because he's right at the very top of that heap as well, but things are moving so dynamically that it's difficult to pair him up with anybody at this point from the top 5. It's possible that so my initial thought would be maybe you give him somebody like Sean Strickland or Jared Cannonier, but my other inclination is to wait until Izzy Pereira is done.
Really?
If Izzy wins that fight, maybe give Pereira Vettori and see how that works out.
Okay.
So, based on how it is right now, I would say Cannonier or Strickland. Depending on how the fight with Izzy goes, maybe Pereira.
Mark?
Was going to say a very similar thing. I'll add one small wrinkle, which is that I was going to say you could wait for that fight, and if Pereira loses, you can do him and Vettori.
Right.
I know Strickland and Cannonier were booked against each other, and Strickland got hurt. So I don't know if they're just trying to delay that fight and rebook it. If they are, then you maybe leave it alone. If they're not, obviously Vettori could fight Cannonier, and that works just fine. But if neither of those play out, you also have Derek Brunson, who has continued fighting here after teasing retirement. He's fighting Jack Hermanson. Obviously, Vettori has beaten Hermanson already. But if Brunson was to win that fight, Vettori Brunson would probably work as well. So there's a few options. You would think one of them probably falls into place.
Yeah, those.
Yeah, Vettori's probably another one that shouldn't fight for the rest of 2022 anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on.